Afternoon, everybody.
Norm! Hey guys, hello gorgeous. Back with another classic 80s TV show review for you. I have been doing these season by season, but this particular show, I'm going to do the whole show in one shot, all 11 seasons. It's Where Everybody Knows Your Name. Cheers. Picked up this amazing set on Amazon a while ago. It is a fantastic price. It's very similar to the MacGyver Complete Series set in that it is one large box which contains two of these huge cases. These cases on their own are huge. You get two of them. So they're split up. First one is seasons 1 to 6. I just actually finished watching season 6, so I have recently rewatched season 1 to 6. I haven't gone through season 7 to 11 yet, but I watched it as a kid and I watched it in reruns, and I'm pretty confident with my memory. I remember what happened, and I feel as though I can talk about the whole show without reviewing those season 7 to 11 yet. But talking about the cases here, really high quality, like the MacGyver. The MacGyver one was actually, some parts of it were broken, brand new when I opened it up. I don't know if this is made of a higher quality plastic. It looks pretty much the same, but there's no broken pieces here. A little bit of cracking up here. I mean, that's going to happen. You get what you pay for. In terms of packaging, the important part is the discs. The discs all played. There were no errors. There were no skips. They're all nice high quality single-sided discs. And it's really packaged conveniently here. You get an individual little thing here for 2 discs. You see it falling out there. I don't know if this was originally supposed to connect in or if this just broke. I'm not sure. At any rate, you also get episode information in here. So listed by season and the names of the episodes listed on there. Kind of hard to see because of the glare, but that's also nice that you can keep track of what episodes that you're watching. And the season 7 to 11 disc is more of the same. Yeah, I guess that just kind of comes right out, and then you can just slide it back in there. There's no need to explain what Cheers is to the viewers of this channel who grew up in the 80s, but for the younger folks, Cheers was a sitcom, half-hour weekly sitcom, basically about people visiting a bar. It was about a former Boston Red Sox relief pitcher named Sam Mayday Malone, who became an alcoholic while he was a pitcher, and he bought a bar while he was pitching, was released from the Red Sox, and then sobered up and just ran his bar with his former coach, the coach, Ernie Pantuso. And the show is just basically a comedy with people visiting the bar and these funny little situations that happen week to week. It's a James J. Burrows show, and he's worked on a lot of great sitcoms over the years, including Taxi, Friends, Dharma and Greg, Frasier, of course, which was the spin-off of Cheers. It might sound like a really simple show, people just visiting a bar and drinking, what's the big deal? But as with a lot of 80s properties which I've revisited recently, Cheers has that magic. It has that really specialness to it that I find is lacking in a lot of movies and TVs these days, because it is lacking in a lot of human beings these days. The situations aren't overly intricate or complicated. It's very similar to Seinfeld. Sometimes it's really about nothing or a tiny little thing that gets blown out of proportion. The show used to run on Thursday nights back-to-back with Seinfeld. I remember watching it as a teen, and Cheers would finish and Seinfeld would start. And when Cheers ended its run, Seinfeld took the prestigious Cheers spot on NBC's evening Thursday night lineup. But the real magic in the show is the genuine camaraderie amongst the people of the cast, despite the fact that there is always conflict among them. One of the golden rules of screenwriting is that conflict is key, and it's an important element even with people who love and care for each other. And one of the best examples that I always go back to is Han Solo and Chewbacca in the original Star Wars trilogy. they're brothers, but they're constantly bantering and bickering with each other. And it's hilarious to watch, but you know that either one of them would die for the other one. Chewie actually has a life debt to Han. But the same goes for Cheers. These people are always bickering and bantering with each other. The first thing that comes to mind is Carla's brutal treatment of everybody's annoying know-it-all mailman, Cliff Clavin, played by John Ratzenberger, who coincidentally was in Empire Strikes Back as Major Durlin, and then a lot of people will also know him as the Lucky Charm of Pixar. They keep bringing him back to play different voices in all of their different movies. He was Ham in Toy Story and The Abominable Snowman in Monsters, Inc. and a whole bunch of other Pixar films. Then you got the conflict between Norm and Cliff. Again, they're really good buddies, but they would never actually admit it to each other or out loud. And then there's the coach, who's a father figure to Sam, but sometimes they butt heads as well. Plus other people who come into the show, brand new characters who are there just for one episode or have recurring roles, but they're not there all that much, like Carla, the waitress, her ex-husband, Nick Tortelli, who's just so disgusting, makes your skin crawl. But he's made up to be the ultimate ladies' man, who even the bar owner, Sam Malone, who is quite the ladies' man himself, Sammy looks up to this disgusting little troll, Nick Tortelli. Some old shows haven't aged as well as others, but I think Cheers definitely still stands up. It has withstood the test of time. The setting might not be all that complicated or classy. It's a nice looking bar, but it's still a bar with bar patrons who are just drinking beer. But it's about ideas, themes that are still relevant to this day, at least for me. Of course, having taken place in the 80s, there's no cell phones, which I really appreciate. It's actually people speaking to each other face to face instead of doing the texting thing. Like a lot of sitcoms from the 80s, cartoons as well, there was an episode-to-episode continuity here, since this was, although it aired on NBC, it was also designed to be aired in syndication after its initial run on NBC. So when it's aired in syndication, it has to be able to be aired out of order, not necessarily just this season's episodes out of order, but maybe one day they'll play an episode from season 2 and one day they'll play an episode from season 4. For the most part, that'll work for Cheers. You can go from season 1 to season 4 and it's not really a big deal, except for the fact that there are a few key cast changes. I'll get to the cast changes in a second, but in terms of continuity, the episodes don't flow from one to the other. But the nice thing is there are these moments, these events that do get referenced later on. So there's an episode with a rival bar up the street called Gary's Old Town Tavern. And so there is a little bit of continuity there from episode to episode. They will mention what happened a couple episodes back or a couple seasons back with Gary's, or they might bring back a character who appeared a few seasons before, and they'll acknowledge what they did before. So it's a cool little nod to the longtime fans who remember what's happened before, but the continuity in the show isn't absolutely integral. In terms of the cast changes, I think that's what kept this show fresh for 11 seasons. This thing ran for a really long time. The first major cast change, unfortunately, came because of the passing of Nicholas Colasanto, who played the beloved Coach Ernie Pantuso. Coach was such a lovable character. He had been a baseball player before he was Sammy's coach on the Red Sox, and he had taken too many baseballs to the head. He had the all-time record for getting hit by a ball and getting to walk to first. And so it had taken its toll, and Coach is lovable, he's very funny, but he's really dumb. A lot of jokes go over his head a lot of the time, doesn't understand what's going on. But sometimes some of the wisest things come out of Coach's mouth, because it's kind of like that expression, out of the mouths of babes. That's basically what Coach is. He's got the brains of a little kid, and it's adorable, especially in like a bar setting with people dealing with adult problems. Coach died during season 3, and then at the beginning of season 4, they brought in his replacement, Woody Boyd, played by Woody Harrelson. And Woody is just basically a younger version of Coach. He's really sweet, simple, innocent, dim-witted. He was actually Coach's pen pal. That's how he's introduced to the show, that he was not writing letters with Coach. He was exchanging pens because they were pen pals. And that was just the perfect way to introduce Woody Boyd, because that sounds exactly like something Coach would do. And the fact that he found somebody who would do that with him, just it makes Woody fit in perfectly. Everybody's favorite psychiatrist, Dr. Frasier Crane, played by Kelsey Grammer, joined the cast in season 3. And after Cheers finished up, Frasier had a pretty good run of its own as a spinoff. And then the biggest cast change was at the end of season 5. Shelley Long left the show, who played Diane Chambers. The show had been conceived as Sam and Diane, Diane and Sam. The chemistry was all about this bar owner, Sam Malone, falling in and out of love over and over again with this uppity, uptight, hoity-toity, stuck-up, annoying woman named Diane Chambers, who had a dream of being a writer. Their relationship throughout the first 5 seasons provides a really fun roller coaster ride of emotions. They go from having a sweet relationship to explosive arguments. There is hilarious scenes where the mild-mannered Sam Malone, who reminds me a lot of Clint Eastwood, he's this tall, dark, and handsome. I mean, you hear that expression, tall, dark, and handsome. It perfectly describes Ted Danson on this show. Even his facial structure, he's got these eyebrows that kind of come out, which kind of give this shaded look to his eyes. It's almost like he's always wearing sunglasses, and he's tall and apparently good looking. The women on the show seem to think so. But this guy is really easygoing, mild-mannered. He's always sipping a water or a tonic on the show. He doesn't drink any alcohol, which is another cool aspect of the show. It's about an alcoholic who owns a bar. And so despite all of the goofy comedy that's going on, I always found it kind of inspirational to see this guy who is always exercising self-discipline, who drank his life away. It ruined his marriage. It ruined his career. All he had left was the bar. When everything else left him, all he had was the bar and Coach. And so I always thought that that was sweet. I talk about the magic of Cheers, the love, the warm fuzzy that more modern shows don't really give me. And that's what Cheers does for me. It's this guy, Sam Malone, he's doing his best, and he's doing pretty damn good after the hell that he created for himself and lived through. So getting back to my point about Sam and Diane's arguments, you got this mild-mannered, sober guy, Sam Malone, who sometimes just explodes with rage. That's what this woman does to him. And he says things like, "Nobody does this to me. I just want to bounce you off these walls." And that's something that Sammy would never say to anybody. I can't imagine him ever being in a situation to say something like that. But with Diane Chambers, yes, I believe it. She is that maddening. And she's funny, she's sweet herself and charming, but she is maddening. And that's part of the fun of the show, watching her not intentionally, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, torment Sam Malone. And a little bit of that spills over to Frasier Crane as well, because he's introduced as Diane's love interest when her and Sam are on a break. And poor Frasier, exact same thing. Very intelligent, well-spoken individual, psychiatrist. Should be even more in control of his own emotions than Sam Malone, because he helps people deal with their stresses and their anxieties. And Frasier, same thing, just flies off the handle. This woman would drive a horse crazy, as an old East European expression goes. So at the end of season 5, Shelley Long left the show, and rather than pulling the plug and saying, well, it was the Sam and Diane show, there is no show without Diane, the creators of the show decided, we're going to bring in somebody new. And rather than bringing in a new love interest for Sam Malone and having everything remain status quo, they kind of blew up the show. It was still about people in a bar, but they drastically changed the situation. A couple spoilers here. Cheers isn't really a show that you can spoil. There aren't big twists and turns. It wasn't conceived, written, and executed that way. It's just a fun time, so it's not like this will ruin your enjoyment of the show. But after season 5 and Diane left the show, the writers had a great idea and they decided Sam wouldn't just go about his business. This would totally change his life, losing this woman that he loved and hated and loved and hated and loved. So he ends up selling the bar and he buys a boat and he wants to sail around the world. And he ends up sinking the boat and he comes back to Cheers, but Cheers is no longer his. It's owned by a corporation, and the person who's been put in charge of Cheers as manager is Rebecca Howe, who is basically Diane's replacement on the show, played by Kirstie Alley. Very wise move by the creators of the show to not just try to find another Diane. Rebecca is a completely different character and just as entertaining to watch, but a totally different character, different motives, different attitude, different hair. I mean, the other one was a blonde, this one's a brunette. The new one's a businesswoman. The other one was like artsy fartsy, creative. So really smart, going in a completely different direction. And Sammy comes in as a bartender. He doesn't own the bar anymore. He's just a schlub doing his job, and he's still pretty much the star of the show, even though it's mostly an ensemble cast. Sammy is always at the forefront. But the rest of the show, so there's a definite break at end of season 5. It feels like that's the first era of Cheers, and then there's a second era of Cheers from season 6 to 11. And the rest of the show is about Sam trying to bed Rebecca because he's just a horn dog. And their growing relationship, and they form a friendship. Not necessarily the hot and cold relationship he had with Diane. It's a different dynamic, but it's really nice watching Sam, who is getting older and more mature, kind of against his own will, but becoming an adult and not necessarily needing to go to bed with every woman that he encounters. Although Rebecca at first appears to be this businesswoman who really has all her stuff together, she ends up being a complete flake nut job, but in the funniest way possible. Very entertaining to watch that. And the really cool thing about the last couple seasons of Cheers is watching Sam get the bar back, because this guy on the show is shown with countless women. He's one of the ultimate ladies' men, but the truth is Sam's true love is the bar. Although at first it seems like it's a show about Sam and Diane, and then after the halfway mark it looks like it'll be about Sam and Rebecca. The show is actually, once you're done watching the whole thing, what I took from it is the show is actually about Sam and the bar. And I think it's got one of the best final episodes of any show ever. There's so many shows that do a final episode and they try to go in a completely different direction, try to do something memorable, shocking. Seinfeld is one of the worst last episodes that I've ever seen. Luckily, Cheers didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They just basically gave you one last visit to Cheers. And I remember to this day watching the final episode of Cheers and thinking, what a beautiful memory. Watching all of the regular patrons of Cheers just sitting there and chatting. And the final shot of the show is just poetic. It's perfect. The first shot of the show and the final shot of the show is absolutely perfect and poetic. If you remember the very first shot ever of Cheers, it's Sam walking out of the pool room. The final shot of the show, when everybody is left, Sam adjusts a picture of Geronimo, which had been Nick Colasanto's in his dressing room, who played Coach. And so the final shot of the show, Sammy adjusting Coach's old picture and walking into the pool room, into the darkness. So the show ends exactly like it started. And like I said before, Sammy's true loves, the only things that he still had with him after he pissed away everything else because of his drinking, the only two things that remained were the bar and Coach. And I think that's just that warm, fuzzy, feel-good thing that a lot of other shows don't give you, that he just acknowledges Coach in that final shot and then walks into the pool room and decides that he's just he's going to stick with the bar, because in that final episode, Diane does return. It's pretty cool that she was willing to come back for the final episode ever and then do that roller coaster thing again where it looks like they're going to get together again, but it's just the perfect ending. Sammy realizing finally that his true love is the bar. It's not necessarily another person. It's what he's doing. It's his love. And he had always gone back to the baseball. It comes up quite a bit throughout the show. His career as a former ball player, and it opens other opportunities like being a newscaster, a horrible sportscaster, and other things. But I just love the fact that in the very end, Sammy realizes that it's not any woman and it's not baseball, that what he's great at is running Cheers, and he's just content with that. When the show ended, I just had the feeling that, tomorrow he'll open up Cheers and everyone will come back, or most of them. A couple people had to leave, like Frasier, to go on to other things. But for the most part, the end of Cheers felt like tomorrow would just be another day at Cheers where everybody knows your name. So if it's been a while since you've seen Cheers, or if you've never seen it, I highly recommend picking up this amazing box set. Or it's also playing on Netflix in the US, I believe. Just a really entertaining show about really entertaining, funny characters, and it's got a warmth to it. Even if you don't drink, I'm straight edge. I don't drink alcohol, but that's not what bars used to be about. There might still be some bars like Cheers in the world, but for the most part, it was about the connection and the camaraderie. It wasn't about drowning your sorrows. Surprisingly, throughout 11 seasons of Cheers, there really aren't any people who go to Cheers to get sloshed over and over and over again and hide from their problems. It was about fun and enjoyment. Now, I think the major reason why they sell alcohol at bars is because it's addictive and it's expensive, so it's a good way for bars to make money. But I have a feeling that Cheers could have been serving orange juice, and it would have still worked, because it was about sitting down after a long, crappy day at work and just connecting with your buds. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. Always glad you came. Got a Cheers memory? Scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Third mistake. Norm!
Everybody knows your name.